Well, hello. Today is the third and final movie in the Sergio Leone trilogy with Clint Eastwood: The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. A man named Angel Eyes, the bad in this movie, is looking for the alias of a man who stole 200,000 in Confederate gold. Meanwhile, the ugly, a man named Tuco, and the good, named Blondie, have a scam where he delivers Tuco for the bounty, then rescues him before he is hanged. The two have a falling out, and Tuco is abandoned in the desert on foot. He gets his revenge on Blondie by capturing him and marching him into the desert on foot. While there, they come on a wagon full of dead Confederate soldiers. One still alive tells Tuco of stolen good in the cemetery where it is. Blondie, though, manages to get the name of the grave where the gold is buried, and the two form a partnership. They get captured while posing as Confederate soldiers and sent to a prison camp. In the prison camp, Angel Eyes, who is a sergeant, hears the name that Tuco assumed as the alias of the man he is looking for. He beats the information out of Tuco, but decides to form a partnership with Blondie instead to go after the gold. Tuco escapes and joins forces with Blondie to defeat the gang of Angel Eyes. The two come on a battle for a river bridge that prevents them from getting to the cemetery with the gold. So the two decide to blow up the bridge so the armies will leave the area. A final confrontation then ensues between the good, the bad, and the ugly. So this was the final in Sergio Leone's trilogy of The Man with No Name that starred Clint Eastwood. And it had an increase of its budget to 1.2 million because of course they had to pay Clint Eastwood some more. This time he got like a percentage of the profits, like 10% or something in the United States and that. And it still made even more money than the first two at 38 million. And of course, it had also Lee Van Cleef and Eli Wallach, and they were the good, the bad, and the ugly. And Lee Van Cleef got brought back for this movie. He was in the second movie of the trilogy, only he was a good guy. He kind of jokes that they brought him back because they forgot to kill him off in that movie. Of course, he played a very bad guy in this one, and it has a lot of great stuff like the Ennio Morricone score, which is very iconic, and you hear that, you recognize it. It's one of those kind of scores that you recognize. And it's a really enjoyable movie. I think it's the best of the trilogy. Sergio Leone does a real good job of capturing the West. It's kind of this grimy place with flies and stuff, and you just get a real authentic feel about it. And this one was also taking place in the Civil War. They had it, so, and there was a lot of what should I say, anti-war themes in this. The futility of war and the waste, and it's kind of interesting because it's not very historically accurate. I mean, you don't watch spaghetti westerns for historical accuracy because there was very little fighting in actuality in the New Mexico territory because there's basically very little population I think they might have had one little battle, maybe even a cannon involved. But this one, have these armies. These are just massive armies that are really lavishly equipped with Gatling guns and big siege cannons and stuff, which you probably wouldn't even see them this lavish in the armies in the East. And of course, when they quit the battle, they just kind of leave all this stuff behind. There's all these cannons and Gatling guns. They leave the dead bodies behind. They even find a wounded guy they just left behind. It's like, just pack up and leave. That seems very unrealistic to me. But yeah, it was a fun movie. And I also, just the one I watched was one that had a lot of the cut scenes put back in. So it's like 161 minutes, which is over 2.5 hours long. It's a long movie, but it's still an enjoyable one. I can see why they kind of cut the scenes, because they didn't really need them, but they were good scenes anyway. I'm glad they put them back in. Found very, one like Tuco, kind of steals his gun from the shopkeeper, and another one where he meets his brother, and we get some background on him. And there was a talk about making a sequel to this, like in the 80s or that, with Joe Dante or that directing it. And it would be 20 years later, the Tuco character would be pursuing Blondie's grandson, and Clint Eastwood even showed some interest, maybe narrating it. But Sergio Leone decided no, he didn't want his character to be used anymore. And I honestly think that was a smart move, because this is a great trilogy. It stands by itself alone. It doesn't really need any sequels or prequels or whatever they like to do these days. And I'm glad that we just it's just left alone, because it's a really great movie. And I think the whole trilogy is probably one of those great trilogies, perfect trilogies that exist. And I think it's a great movie. If you like westerns and that, you'll love this movie. So if you stuck with me this long, I thank you. You're a unique individual.